see. He said, I am the man. And they asked how, and then he repeated the story of the making of the clay, of his obedience, and his coming back. I think we ought to regard many questions which we cannot answer as opportunities, not for theological discussion, but for bringing to bear the provision of God upon this particular need, as Jesus did here. And furthermore, if your need is physical, social, psychological, or financial, if Jesus tells you to do something, do it. Obedience is the road to receiving from God. Now, do not misunderstand me, please. I am not preaching that the goodness of God to us is based on our deserving it, or salvation is based upon works, or that we earn what God does for us in the way of healings or other acts of mercy to us. But I am saying that as you seek God for your needs, and then God deals with you and makes something real to you in your heart, and he says go to the pool, you go to the pool. And you will come away seeing. Read the following verses.
They said to him, Where is he? He said, I do not know. They brought to the Pharisees the man who had formerly been blind. Now it was a Sabbath day, when Jesus made the clay and opened his eyes. The Pharisees again asked him how he had received his sight, and he said to them, He put clay on my eyes, and I washed, and I see.
Now this is interesting. We must, of course, observe the law. The law says that you shall not work on the Sabbath day, and Jesus has violated the law. He has taken spit and made a dab of mud at least the size of a penny, and he is not supposed to work on the Sabbath day. Furthermore, he has healed on the Sabbath day, and healing is obviously work, and he shouldn't have done it, not on the Sabbath day. And so the Pharisees, hearing the man is healed, knowing Jesus will get the credit, not wanting him to get the credit, they have him brought to them, and they put him through a cross-examination. And at the first cross-examining, he gives his testimony. And he said, he put clay on my eyes, I did what he told me, and as a result, I see. Now comes the argument among themselves, verse 16 through 17.
Some of the Pharisees said, This man is not from God, for he does not keep the Sabbath. But others said, How can a man who is a sinner do such signs? There was a division among them. So they again said to the blind man, What do you say about him, since he has opened your eyes? He said, He is a prophet.
Now here we have different answers because we have different starting points. One starts from the viewpoint of preconceived ideas of right and wrong. You cannot work on the Sabbath day, and therefore anything done on the Sabbath day is wrong. Others start from the premise that only good men can do good deeds. And starting from that premise, you wind up with the fact that this must be a good man because this is a good deed. The different answers come out because they have different presuppositions. And this goes on all the time. A great many people have ideas which keep them from seeing what is going on. A number of years ago, I was teaching, not the course, but in a college. I was the registrar, where we used a treatise on theology, written at that time by a Calvinist, although this was an Arminian school I was in. And this outstanding theologian, following Calvin's theory that the church replaced the nation of Israel in the plan of God, wrote about 1942 or 3 that there were those, he knew about the idea, there were those who believed that there was a place in the future for national Israel. But he said this cannot be because God has transferred the promises from national Israel to the church. Now, this was at a time when Jews were moving out of Central Europe and going to Palestine. It was before the British had pulled out of Palestine, and the Jews were flooding in and buying land from the Arabs, doing it a legal transaction, but they moved it from a place where it was worth about $2 an acre as grazing land for goats and cattle, and made it into land extremely valuable by irrigation, worth maybe several $1,000s an acre, covered with citrus. A very frustrating process for these Arabs who were seeing this land moved from valueless land into very valuable land. But in this argument of what was going to be done about the Jews, his presuppositions kept him from seeing what was actually happening. The point of view that the Jews did not have a national history because they had been replaced by the church. Yet within 5 years, by 1948, the British had brought their ships to the shore of Palestine, marched their troops up the gangplank, and Israel had become a nation. His theological prejudices had kept him from seeing what was happening right before his eyes in every morning paper. And this goes on all the time. People cannot see the truth. They do not believe in miracles, and therefore, if she got out of that wheelchair, she was a fake. She could have walked all the time if she had just tried. And we have all this all the time. And so they argue about whether or not Jesus could be a good man, and the division is across these lines of their presuppositions. But they asked the man, what do you think about him? What he said, my experience is brief, but as far as I'm concerned, anybody that can help me see when I was blind, he's a prophet. There's no question.
Now, we trust that you've taken your notes and you're now ready to take our TV Bible exam, which is coming right up. Jesus said, "You cannot bear to hear my words because A, they are difficult to understand, B, the language is not clear, C, you are not of God, D, they have hidden meaning." The answer C, you are not of God. Whom did Jesus identify as the father of lies? The devil.